They say blood is thicker than water, but I have learned that blood can also poison you from the inside out. I am 71 years old, and I have spent the last 23 years of my life devoted to one person, my granddaughter, Olivia. I fed her when she was hungry. I held her when she cried. I sacrificed my retirement, my savings, my dreams, and my peace of mind to give her everything I never had. And in return, she tried to destroy me completely. She tried to take my home, my dignity, and my sanity. She wanted to lock me away in some facility while she spent the inheritance I had worked my entire life to build. But what Olivia did not know, what she failed to consider in all her careful planning and manipulation, was that I was not some frail old woman ready to roll over and disappear. I was Margaret Eleanor Whitfield. I had survived losing my husband, losing my daughter, working double shifts for 30 years as a registered nurse, and raising a child when I should have been enjoying my golden years. I was not going to let a 27-year-old girl I had raised with my own two hands throw me away like yesterday's garbage. This is the story of how my granddaughter betrayed me in the cruelest way imaginable, and how I made absolutely certain she faced every consequence she deserved. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was the summer of 2001. I remember it clearly because the heat that year was unbearable, and my little house in Medford, Massachusetts, did not have central air conditioning. I was 48 years old, still working full-time at the hospital, still adjusting to life without my husband Harold, who had passed away 3 years earlier from a heart attack. My daughter, Patricia, had been struggling for years. She had gotten involved with drugs in her early 20s. And no matter what I did, no matter how many times I tried to help her, she kept falling back into that dark hole. She had Olivia when she was 19, and the father was some man whose name I never even knew. He disappeared before Olivia was even born. For the first 4 years of Olivia's life, Patricia tried. She really did. But the addiction was stronger than her willpower, and eventually, Child Protective Services got involved. They called me on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in the middle of my shift at the hospital. They told me Patricia had been arrested and that Olivia needed somewhere to go. They asked if I would take her temporarily. I did not even hesitate. Of course I would take her. She was my granddaughter. She was my blood. I drove to the CPS office that evening and picked up this tiny, terrified 4-year-old girl who had clearly seen things no child should ever see. She had bruises on her arms. She was underweight. Her hair was matted and dirty. But her eyes, those big brown eyes, they looked up at me with so much hope. She called me Grammy in this small voice, and my heart shattered into a million pieces. I promised myself right then and there that I would give this child a real life. I would give her stability, love, and every opportunity I could afford. Patricia signed over custody to me 6 months later. She said it was temporary, just until she got clean. But temporary turned into permanent. She went in and out of rehab programs, in and out of jail, in and out of my life. Olivia would ask about her mother constantly for the first few years, and I always tried to give her hope. I told her that her mommy loved her very much but was sick and trying to get better. When Patricia died of an overdose in 2010, Olivia was 13 years old. I held her while she sobbed for 3 days straight. I took 2 weeks off work to be with her. I put her in therapy. I did everything I possibly could to help her process that grief. And Olivia seemed to flourish. She was an excellent student. She was polite and well-mannered. She had friends. She joined the debate team in high school and won several competitions. She got accepted into Boston University with a partial scholarship, and I took out a loan to cover the rest. I worked extra shifts well into my 60s to make sure she never wanted for anything. I bought her a car when she turned 18. I paid for her apartment when she graduated and got an entry-level job at a marketing firm downtown. I never expected anything in return except her love. That was all I ever wanted. For years, I thought I had it. I thought we were close. She would come over every Sunday for dinner. She would call me during the week just to chat. She would bring me flowers on my birthday and take me out for breakfast on Mother's Day. She would tell me she loved me and that she did not know what she would have done without me, and I believed her. Why would I not? I had raised her since she was 4 years old. I knew her better than anyone, or at least I thought I did. The first sign that something was changing came about 3 years ago, when Olivia was 24. She had been dating this man named Marcus Reed for about 6 months, and she brought him over for Thanksgiving dinner. He was handsome, I will give him that. Tall, dark hair, a smile that could charm the birds out of the trees. He worked in real estate development and talked constantly about all the deals he was closing, all the money he was making, all the properties he was flipping. I noticed immediately that he had a way of looking around my house like he was appraising it. He complimented the original hardwood floors. He asked when the roof had been replaced. He wanted to know how much land the property sat on. At the time, I thought he was just making conversation. I thought he was interested because he was in real estate. I was a fool. After that Thanksgiving, Olivia's visits became less frequent. She said she was busy with work. She said Marcus was taking her on trips. She said she was planning for her future. I understood. Young people have their own lives to live. I did not want to be the clingy grandmother who demanded all her attention, but I missed her. I missed our Sunday dinners. I missed hearing about her day. I missed feeling like I still had family. Then, about 2 years ago, Olivia started showing up more often, but something was different. She was not coming to spend time with me. She was coming to ask questions. Questions about my finances, my health, my plans for the future. She wanted to know if I had updated my will. She wanted to know who my beneficiaries were. She wanted to know if I had considered what would happen to the house when I was gone. I thought she was just being practical. I thought she was concerned about me. I told her everything. I told her that she was my only beneficiary. I told her that the house was paid off and worth about $450,000 in the current market. I told her about my retirement accounts, my pension, my savings. I laid out my entire financial life for her because I trusted her completely. Looking back now, I can see exactly what she was doing. She was taking inventory, she was calculating, she was planning. But at the time, I was just a grandmother, happy that her granddaughter was taking an interest in her well-being. About 18 months ago, Olivia started suggesting that I might want to add her name to my bank accounts. She said it would be easier for her to help me pay bills if something happened. She said it was what most elderly people did with their families. I did not like being called elderly, but I agreed to add her to my checking account. I thought it was practical. I thought it showed that I trusted her. Within 3 months, I noticed that money was disappearing. Not huge amounts at first. $50 here, $100 there. I assumed I had forgotten about some automatic payment or subscription. I was getting older after all. Maybe I was being forgetful. But the amounts grew larger. $200, $500, $800. One day, I logged into my account online and saw that over $3,000 had been transferred out in a single week. I called Olivia immediately, thinking maybe my account had been hacked. She answered the phone in this calm, almost dismissive voice and told me not to worry about it. She said she had needed to borrow some money for an emergency and that she would pay it back. She said she did not want to bother me while I was recovering from my hip replacement surgery. I had completely forgotten that she had access to my account. I felt embarrassed for forgetting and guilty for questioning her. She never paid it back, and the withdrawals continued. Over the next year, I estimate that Olivia took somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 from my accounts. She always had an explanation. She was helping Marcus with a business deal that was going to pay off big. She was investing in something that would triple my money. She had an unexpected expense, but would make it up to me. And every single time, I believed her. I made excuses for her. I told myself that she was young and still learning about money. I told myself that I had plenty to live on and did not need to be greedy. I told myself that family helps family. But something shifted about 8 months ago. It started with a visit from a woman I had never seen before. She showed up at my door on a Wednesday afternoon wearing a blazer and carrying a clipboard. She introduced herself as a social worker from the Massachusetts Department of Elder Affairs. She said she was there to do a wellness check because someone had filed a report expressing concern about my living conditions and mental state. I was completely bewildered. I invited her in and showed her around my perfectly clean, perfectly organized home. I answered all her questions coherently and correctly. I showed her my medication list and explained that I managed everything myself. She seemed satisfied and left after about 45 minutes, apologizing for the inconvenience. I called Olivia that evening to tell her about the strange visit. I expected her to be as confused as I was. Instead, there was this pause on the other end of the line. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She said maybe the social worker was right to check on me. She said I had been acting confused lately. She said I had been repeating myself and forgetting things. She said maybe I should think about getting an evaluation. I hung up the phone feeling like I had been punched in the stomach. I had not been acting confused. I had not been forgetting things any more than any 70-year-old person normally does. I knew exactly what day it was, what year it was, who the president was, and what I had eaten for breakfast. Something was very, very wrong. Over the next few weeks, I paid closer attention. I started writing things down in a notebook that I kept hidden in my nightstand. I documented every conversation I had with Olivia, every withdrawal from my accounts, every time she said something that contradicted what she had said before, and patterns began to emerge. Olivia would call me and tell me something, then call back a few days later and deny ever having said it. She would move things around in my house when she visited, and then act surprised when I could not find them. She would tell other people that I was declining mentally, that I was showing signs of dementia, that she was so worried about her poor grandmother. She was gaslighting me. She was systematically trying to make me and everyone around me believe that I was losing my mind, and I knew exactly why. If I was declared mentally incompetent, Olivia could petition the court to become my legal guardian. She would have full control over my finances, my healthcare decisions, my property. She could put me in a nursing home against my will and sell my house. She could drain every penny I had ever saved. And by the time anyone realized what was happening, I would be trapped in some facility with no voice and no power to stop her. The realization hit me like a freight train. My granddaughter, the child I had raised and loved and sacrificed everything for, was trying to steal my life. Not just my money, my entire life. I spent 3 days in a fog of grief and disbelief. I cried until I could not cry anymore. I did not eat. I barely slept. I kept asking myself what I had done wrong. Was this my fault somehow? Had I failed her? Was there something I should have seen earlier? But then, on the 4th day, something shifted inside me. The grief hardened into something else, something cold and determined. I was not going to let her do this to me. I was not going to be a victim. I was going to fight back. The first thing I did was call my neighbor, Helen Caruso. Helen was 68 years old, a retired accountant, and the most observant person I had ever known. She had lived next door to me for over 30 years. Our husbands had been friends. We had watched each other's children grow up. She was one of the few people in the world I trusted completely. I invited her over for coffee and told her everything. I showed her the notebook. I showed her my bank statements. I told her about the social worker visit, about Olivia's strange comments, about my suspicion that my own granddaughter was trying to have me declared incompetent. Helen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me with fire in her eyes. She said she had noticed things too. She had seen Marcus taking pictures of my house from the sidewalk a few months ago. She had overheard Olivia on the phone in my driveway talking about how the property value was going to make everything worth it. She had thought it was strange but did not want to upset me by saying anything. Now she wished she had spoken up sooner. We made a plan that afternoon. Helen offered to help me go through all my financial records with her accountant's eye. She helped me set up a hidden camera in my living room, one of those ones that looks like an ordinary clock. She connected with her nephew, who was a lawyer specializing in elder law, and arranged for me to have a consultation. And she promised to be my witness, my ally, my friend, through whatever was coming. The first major piece of evidence came within 2 weeks. Olivia came over to visit, and I pretended everything was normal. I made her tea. I asked about her job. I smiled and nodded while she talked about Marcus and their plans for the future. But the hidden camera was recording everything. At one point, she asked to use the bathroom, and I watched her on my phone screen as she went into my bedroom instead. She opened my nightstand drawer, the one where I used to keep my notebook, but I had moved it to Helen's house by then. She seemed frustrated when she did not find what she was looking for. Then she went into my closet and started going through my jewelry box. She took a pair of diamond earrings that Harold had given me for our 20th anniversary and put them in her pocket. She did not even hesitate. She just took them like she was entitled to them. When she came back to the living room, she acted like nothing had happened. She finished her tea, gave me a hug, and told me she loved me. I said it back, but the words tasted like poison in my mouth. I knew now what she was. I knew exactly who I was dealing with. Helen's nephew, the lawyer, was a godsend. His name was Anthony Caruso, and he specialized in cases exactly like mine. He had seen this pattern before. Adult children or grandchildren who target elderly relatives for their assets, who gaslight and manipulate and isolate, who file false reports and forge documents and use the legal system as a weapon. He said Olivia's behavior was textbook elder financial abuse, and he was going to help me build a case against her. The first thing Anthony did was help me remove Olivia from my bank accounts. We did it quietly, without telling her. I opened new accounts at a different bank, transferred my money, and closed the old accounts entirely. When Olivia tried to access them the following week, she got an error message. She called me immediately, her voice sharp with anger disguised as concern. She asked what happened to the accounts. I told her I had switched banks because of a promotional offer. She did not believe me, I could tell, but she could not say anything without revealing that she had been trying to access my money without permission. The second thing Anthony did was arrange for me to have a comprehensive cognitive evaluation by a respected neuropsychologist. I went through hours of testing over 2 days. Memory tests, reasoning tests, problem-solving tests, psychological assessments. At the end of it all, the doctor told me what I already knew. I was in excellent cognitive health for my age. No signs of dementia, no significant memory impairment, no indication of any condition that would affect my capacity to manage my own affairs. He gave me a detailed written report, and I kept multiple copies in safe places. The third thing Anthony did was file a motion with the court preemptively. Before Olivia could petition to become my guardian, we went on the offensive. We submitted the neuropsychologist's report, along with evidence of the unauthorized withdrawals from my accounts and the recording of Olivia stealing my jewelry. Anthony argued that any future attempt by Olivia to seek guardianship should be viewed with extreme skepticism, given the documented evidence of financial exploitation. But the real turning point came when I discovered something that made everything else pale in comparison. It was about 4 months ago. Helen and I had been going through old documents, organizing everything for my case, when I came across a file I had not looked at in years. It contained the paperwork from when I gained custody of Olivia back in 2001. As I flipped through the pages, something caught my eye. A letter from Patricia, my daughter, that I had never opened. It was dated 2 weeks before she signed over custody, and it had somehow gotten buried in the folder and forgotten. I opened it with trembling hands. Patricia's handwriting was messy and hurried, the writing of someone in crisis. The letter was an apology. She apologized for being a bad mother, for the addiction, for failing Olivia. But there was something else, too. She wrote about Olivia in a way that surprised me. She said Olivia scared her sometimes. She said even at 4 years old, there was something calculating about the way Olivia watched people, studied them, figured out what they wanted to hear. Patricia wrote that she had caught Olivia hurting the neighbor's cat and showing no remorse. She had caught Olivia lying about things that did not matter just for the practice of it. Patricia said she knew something was wrong with her daughter, something deep and dark, but she did not know how to fix it. She said she hoped I could give Olivia the structure and love she needed to become a good person. I sat there staring at that letter for a long time. I thought about all the years I had spent with Olivia, all the moments I had cherished, all the times I had believed I was watching her become a wonderful young woman. Had I been blind the entire time? Had I missed the warning signs because I wanted so badly to believe that love could heal everything? I remembered little things that I had dismissed or rationalized. The time in middle school when Olivia's best friend suddenly turned on her, and Olivia seemed more triumphant than upset about it. The time in high school when a teacher accused Olivia of cheating, and Olivia cried and denied it so convincingly that I believed her over the teacher. The time in college when her roommate moved out mid-semester, and Olivia never gave a clear explanation why. I had always given Olivia the benefit of the doubt. I had always assumed the best. Now I wondered if I had been living with a stranger all along. The discoveries kept coming after that. With Helen's help, I started digging deeper into Olivia and Marcus's activities. What I found was staggering. Marcus Reed's real estate development business was not what it appeared to be. He had a history of targeting elderly homeowners with properties they wanted to flip. There were complaints filed against him in 3 different counties. He had been sued twice for predatory practices, though both cases were settled out of court. And in almost every case, there was a pattern. He would find an elderly person, usually someone living alone, and he would find a way to get close to them. Sometimes it was through a family member. Sometimes it was through a fake charity. Sometimes it was just by being charming and helpful until he had gained their trust. Then he would convince them to sign over their property or take out a reverse mortgage or enter into some complicated financial arrangement that always ended with Marcus owning their home. I was not his first target. I was just his latest. Helen's nephew, Anthony, dug even deeper. He found that Marcus had been engaged twice before, both times to women whose grandparents or parents had significant assets. Both engagements had ended after the assets were transferred, or the elderly relatives had died under questionable circumstances. There was no direct evidence of foul play, but the pattern was too consistent to be coincidence. Olivia was not a victim of Marcus's manipulation. She was his partner. They had met 3 years earlier at a real estate seminar, and they had been running this scheme together ever since. My granddaughter was not in love with this man. She was in business with him, and I was their current project. The anger I felt was like nothing I had ever experienced. It burned so hot that I thought it might consume me entirely, but I forced myself to channel it, to use it as fuel rather than letting it destroy me. I was going to take them down, both of them, and I was going to make sure they could never do this to anyone else. Over the next 2 months, I became a different person. On the surface, I was still sweet old Grammy Maggie, the lonely widow who was maybe getting a little confused in her old age. I played the role perfectly. I let Olivia come over for visits. I let Marcus accompany her sometimes, smiling that charming smile while he looked at my house with predatory eyes. I asked for their advice on things. I pretended to forget appointments and repeat stories. I gave them exactly what they expected to see. But behind the scenes, I was building an airtight case against them. I wore a wire. Anthony had a contact who helped me get a small recording device that looked like a medical alert pendant. Every conversation I had with Olivia and Marcus was captured. Every lie they told, every manipulation they attempted, every discussion they had in front of me thinking I was too senile to understand what they were saying. I recorded Marcus telling Olivia that the house could sell for $500,000 if they made some quick improvements. I recorded Olivia saying they needed to speed up the guardianship process because I was taking too long to decline. I recorded Marcus joking that maybe they should put something in my tea to help things along. They laughed about it like it was the funniest thing in the world. I also reached out to the other victims. With Anthony's help, I tracked down 2 of the elderly people Marcus had targeted in the past. One was a woman named Dorothy Heller, who had lost her home and ended up in a state-run nursing facility with nothing to her name. The other was a man named George Patterson, whose late wife's property had been transferred to Marcus through what appeared to be a forged power of attorney. Both of them were willing to cooperate with our investigation. Both of them were eager to see justice done. We also found something else. Marcus had been careless with his business records. He had stored digital files on a cloud service that one of Anthony's investigators was able to access with a court order. In those files were detailed plans for at least 7 different schemes, including mine. There were spreadsheets tracking the value of target properties. There were notes on how to manipulate elderly victims into compliance. There were emails between Marcus and Olivia discussing their timeline for getting control of my estate. In one particularly damning email, Olivia had written that she could not wait to finally be free of the obligation of pretending to care about me. She called me a burden. She called me pathetic. She said the only useful thing I had ever done was accumulate assets for her to inherit. Reading those words broke something inside me that I do not think will ever fully heal. But it also gave me clarity. This was not my granddaughter. This was someone who had been wearing a mask for over 2 decades. The real Olivia had been hiding underneath all along, waiting for the right moment to strike. The day of reckoning came on a beautiful spring morning about 6 weeks ago. I had invited Olivia and Marcus over for brunch. I told them I wanted to discuss some important decisions about my future. They showed up looking eager, probably thinking I was finally ready to hand everything over. What they did not know was that Helen was watching from her house next door, ready to call the police if anything went wrong. They did not know that Anthony was parked down the street with a private investigator and a notary. They did not know that I was wearing the wire, as always, and that everything they said was being transmitted to Anthony's laptop in real time. I served them mimosas and eggs Benedict. I made small talk about the weather. Then I told them I had something important to show them. I pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. Inside were copies of everything. The bank statements showing the money Olivia had stolen, the recording of her taking my jewelry, the neuropsychologist's report proving I was mentally competent, the emails between her and Marcus, the documentation of Marcus's previous schemes, the statements from his other victims. Everything. Olivia's face went pale. Marcus tried to maintain his composure, but I could see the panic in his eyes. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Olivia started to cry. She said she could explain. She said Marcus had manipulated her, forced her into this, threatened her. She said she loved me. She really did. She had just made some terrible mistakes. She reached for my hand, her face crumpled with what looked like genuine distress. I pulled my hand away. I told her I had recordings. I told her I had the emails. I told her that trying to blame Marcus was not going to work because I knew they were equal partners in this scheme. I told her that I had been on to her for months, that every lie she had told me since then had been documented, that she had no way out. Marcus stood up abruptly and said they were leaving. He grabbed Olivia's arm and pulled her toward the door, but when he opened it, He found two police officers standing on the porch. Behind them was Anthony with the warrant he had obtained the day before. Marcus was arrested on the spot for elder financial abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Olivia was arrested with him. They were put in separate police cars and driven away while half my neighborhood watched from their windows. The trial took place over the course of 3 weeks. It was exhausting and emotionally devastating, but I testified for 5 hours straight without breaking down. I told the court everything. I showed them the evidence. I described the manipulation, the gaslighting, the calculated cruelty. I looked Olivia in the eyes while she sat at the defendant's table, and I made her see that I knew exactly who she was. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a victim. He said Marcus had controlled her, abused her, forced her into this life. But the emails told a different story. The recordings told a different story. The pattern of behavior going back to childhood told a different story. The jury was not convinced. Marcus was convicted of 4 counts of elder financial abuse, 2 counts of fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. His real estate license was revoked permanently. His remaining assets were seized to pay restitution to his victims. Olivia was convicted of 3 counts of elder financial abuse, 1 count of theft, and 1 count of conspiracy. She was sentenced to 8 years in state prison. Her fiancé was gone. Her reputation was destroyed. Her face was in the local news as a cautionary tale about elder abuse. Everyone who had ever known her saw what she really was. After the sentencing, I made a statement to the press. I said that I had raised Olivia with everything I had. I said I had loved her more than my own life. I said that her betrayal was the worst pain I had ever experienced, worse than losing my husband, worse than losing my daughter. But I also said that I refused to be defined by what she had done to me. I said that I was not a victim. I was a survivor. And I hoped that other elderly people who might be experiencing something similar would see my story and find the courage to fight back. The journalist from the Boston Globe asked me if I had any message for Olivia. I thought about it for a moment. Then I said that I hoped she would use her time in prison to reflect on the choices she had made. I said that I did not hate her, because hate is too heavy a burden to carry at my age. But I said that I would never forgive her. Some things are unforgivable. Some betrayals cannot be undone. She took my trust, my love, and my peace of mind, and she threw them away like they meant nothing. That is not something I can ever forget. Since the trial, life has settled into a new kind of normal. I had to sell the house in Medford, not because of Marcus and Olivia, but because living there had become too painful. Every room held memories that had been poisoned. Every corner reminded me of the granddaughter I thought I knew and the monster she turned out to be. I bought a smaller place in a retirement community about 30 miles away. It is safe, quiet, and filled with people my own age who understand what it means to have lived a long life full of both joy and sorrow. Helen moved into the community too. We see each other almost every day. We play cards on Tuesday nights and go to water aerobics on Thursday mornings. She has become more than a neighbor. She has become my chosen family. She was there for me when my blood family tried to destroy me, and that is a debt I can never repay. My son Daniel reached out after the trial. He had seen the news coverage. He is 50 years old now, living in Seattle with a wife I have never met and 2 children I have never seen. He left Massachusetts right after high school and never looked back. He and I have never been close. He blamed me for Patricia's problems, though he never said why. We speak on the phone occasionally now. It is awkward and stilted, but it is something. Maybe one day we will have a real relationship. Maybe we will not. I have learned not to expect anything from family anymore. There is something else I have not talked about yet. Something that gives me a complicated kind of peace. About 3 months after Olivia went to prison, I received a letter. It was from her. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. It was 12 pages long, handwritten, and filled with things I had never heard her say before. She did not make excuses. She did not blame Marcus. She did not claim to be a victim. Instead, she wrote about her childhood, about the darkness she had always felt inside, about the way she had learned early to mimic emotions she did not actually feel. She wrote about my daughter Patricia and the letter Patricia had written warning me about her. She said Patricia had been right. There was something broken inside her, something that no amount of love could fix. She said she had known since she was a teenager that she was different, that she did not feel things the way other people did, but she had never sought help because she was afraid of what she might find out. She wrote that being in prison had forced her to confront herself in a way she never had before. She was seeing a therapist. She was on medication. She was learning, for the first time in her life, to understand her own mind. She said she was not asking for forgiveness because she knew she did not deserve it. She said she was not asking me to visit or write back or acknowledge her existence in any way. She just wanted me to know that she understood what she had done. She understood the magnitude of the betrayal, and she was genuinely sorry for the pain she had caused. I do not know if she meant it. I do not know if people like Olivia are capable of genuine remorse, or if she is just manipulating me again, playing a longer game, hoping for some advantage down the line. I have thought about it a lot over the past few months, and I still do not have an answer. What I do know is that I am not going to write back. I am not going to visit her. I am not going to allow her back into my life in any capacity. The door is closed, and it is going to stay closed. Whether her apology was real or not, it does not change what she did. It does not give me back the years I spent loving someone who was incapable of loving me in return. It does not restore my trust in the world or in family or in the fundamental goodness of people. But I have made my peace with that. I have learned that peace does not always mean everything is resolved and healed and perfect. Sometimes peace just means accepting what happened, letting go of the anger, and choosing to move forward anyway. I still think about Olivia sometimes. I wonder what she is doing, who she is becoming, whether the person she was when she wrote that letter is real or just another mask. I probably will never know. And I have decided that is okay. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. Some questions do not have answers. Some relationships are simply meant to end. What matters now is that I survived. I fought back against someone who tried to destroy me, and I won. Not through violence or revenge in the traditional sense, but through preparation, documentation, patience, and the help of people who genuinely cared about me. I exposed the truth. I held her accountable. I ensured that she and Marcus would never be able to do to anyone else what they tried to do to me. That is what real justice looks like. It is not dramatic or cinematic. It does not involve car chases or confrontations or moments of violent retribution. It is slow and methodical and exhausting. It requires keeping your head when everyone around you is trying to convince you that you are losing your mind. It requires trusting yourself when the people closest to you are working to undermine that trust. It requires believing that the truth matters, that evidence matters, that the system, imperfect as it is, can sometimes work in favor of the people it is supposed to protect. I am 71 years old. I have maybe 10 or 15 good years left if I am lucky. I plan to spend them surrounded by people who actually care about me, doing things that bring me joy, and living as fully as I can for whatever time I have remaining. I have survived losing my husband, losing my daughter, and losing the granddaughter I thought I knew. I have survived betrayal, manipulation, and the systematic attempt to destroy my life, and I am still standing. There is a saying I heard once, something about living well being the best revenge. I used to think it was just a platitude, something people say to make themselves feel better when they have been wronged. But I understand it now. The best revenge is not destroying your enemy. It is refusing to let them destroy you. It is building a life that is good and meaningful and happy, despite everything they did to take that away from you. It is waking up every morning knowing that you survived, you fought, you won. That is what I do now. Every morning, I wake up in my little apartment with the morning sun coming through the windows. I make myself a cup of tea. I read the newspaper. I call Helen, and we talk about nothing in particular. I go for walks around the community, nodding to neighbors and stopping to pet dogs. I cook myself proper meals and eat them slowly, savoring every bite. I read books I have always meant to read and watch movies I have always meant to watch. I do not think about Olivia every day anymore. Sometimes whole weeks go by without her crossing my mind. That is the real victory. Not the trial, not the convictions, not the newspaper headlines. The real victory is that she no longer occupies space in my head. She tried to take everything from me, and instead, she lost everything herself. Her freedom, her reputation, her future. Meanwhile, I am still here, still living, still finding reasons to smile. I used to wonder what I did wrong. I used to blame myself for not seeing the signs, for loving too blindly, for trusting too easily. But I have let that go. I did not do anything wrong. I loved my granddaughter. I raised her the best I could. I gave her every opportunity to become a good person. The fact that she chose a different path is not my failure. It is hers. And maybe that is the hardest part of this whole experience. Accepting that you can do everything right and still have it turn out wrong. Accepting that love is not always enough, that some people cannot be saved no matter how hard you try, that blood does not guarantee loyalty. It is a painful truth, but it is the truth. And I would rather live in the truth than go back to the comfortable lie I believed for so many years. So here I am, Margaret Eleanor Whitfield, 71 years old, widow, mother of a daughter lost to addiction, grandmother of a granddaughter lost to something darker, survivor, fighter, still standing. If you are listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, if there is someone in your life who is manipulating you or gaslighting you or trying to make you doubt your own mind, I want you to know that you are not crazy. You are not imagining things. Your instincts are trying to tell you something, and you should listen to them. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. Seek legal help. Do not be embarrassed or ashamed. This is not your fault. There are people out there who will believe you and help you fight back. The betrayal of family is the cruelest kind because it takes the thing that is supposed to be safest, the love between parent and child or grandparent and grandchild, and turns it into a weapon. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself and the people you love. It makes you wonder if you can ever trust anyone again. But you can. You will. Not everyone is like Olivia. Not everyone has darkness where their heart should be. There are good people in the world, people like Helen, who will stand by you when everything falls apart. You just have to be willing to let them in, even after you have been burned so badly. I am letting them in now. I am building a new family out of friends and neighbors and people who have proven their loyalty through actions rather than just words. It is smaller than the family I thought I had, but it is real. It is honest. It is mine. And that is worth more than anything Olivia could ever have taken from me. This is my story. The story of a grandmother who raised a child, loved her completely, and was betrayed in the most devastating way possible. The story of how I fought back, exposed the truth, and found justice. The story of survival, resilience, and the stubborn refusal to be destroyed. I hope you never have to live through something like this. But if you do, I hope you remember my story. I hope you remember that you are stronger than you think, that the truth has power, and that the people who try to break you can be broken in return. Thank you for listening. And remember, blood may be thicker than water, but loyalty is thicker than blood. Choose the people who choose you back. Protect yourself from those who would use your love against you. And never, ever let anyone make you believe that you are less than you are. You are worthy. You are capable. You are enough.